We're back.
Yes. Episode 418, baby.
Yeah. We're talking about mail because we got a lot.
We do.
So
every once in a while, we gotta go through the questions that we go and we go. Just when we think there's like nothing else to talk about, we get questions, and I sit there and I go, I don't know what we're going to talk about, and it's like, well, crap. There's a whole bunch of questions that just came in. Let's address some of them.
Yeah. So just quickly get I got the conference list here because I knew Mike was going to snooker me on that one.
Where are we going to be?
Okay. Oklahoma is this weekend. Michigan, Ontario, South Carolina, Connecticut, Walmer, which is Wisconsin, New England, Cold Zone, New York State, and Baltimore. That's the current list in order.
I love the fact that Ontario, like we are being adopted by Canada.
That's gonna be a really good one because we're doing scavenger hunts. We're doing all types of fun stuff for everybody up there. So
yeah.
Wait for us. We'll be there.
Yeah. And we've got actual trainings happening up in Canada as well. So we are brushing up on our Canadian, trying to, get the A, trying to be really nice. You know how hard it is for a New Yorker to go into Canada and like try to blend in? Yeah. It's very difficult.
Sore thumb.
All right. So the very first question we have is about something called the 1300 rule. And the question had come in, hey, are you guys aware of this rule? And in reality, what can it actually do for me? Like, I'm just learning about this now in class, and I don't understand where it goes into the operation. I don't understand how it can be applied during an actual event.
Yeah, I remember hearing about this a long time ago. And I was like, that's nice to know. And cute. That was it. Yeah. And I will say I never actually used it.
I never have either. But it could, if you wanted to, have it fit into your relationship, right? And the general idea is, well, why is it called the 1300 rule?
Okay, so it's a rule of thumb. And I'm not so staunch on I'm against rule of thumbs. I use rules of thumb all the time. However, it has a couple of also additional parameters that are like a little bit hard to kind of grasp. So basically what you do is you take the vapor pressure or whatever the hell chemical it is, and you multiply it by 1300.
And what does that get you?
That would get you the maximum concentration potential in a confined space. So this means that you've given enough time for it to completely hit the whole headspace of it. Second off, you need a confined space with no ventilation profiles. And that's not likely because how are you metering it? Like the fact that your meter comes into that space means that there's an opening in that space.
Right. It lands. So quite often when we teach, especially when we're teaching chemical physical properties, right? That whole concept of chemical physical properties, it comes down to this idea. You have two parts of your operation. You have your theoretical and you have your reality. And when we're doing all of our research, we're in the theoretical phase. We're trying to figure out theoretically what is going on, right? So when I do this, let's say I had I had ethanol and I have ethanol. Okay, so theoretically, I'm walking into an environment with ethanol. What should I see? Well, I should see a reading on my PID. If the temperature is high enough, I could see flammability, right? I go through and I almost hypothesize what my findings should be, what my PPE should be, and then I have reality, where I actually walk in with my meters and I get some kind of a reading, and that reading is relayed back. And as a resource person, we compare the two. We compare the theoretical versus what reality is in front of us. And anytime there's a difference between those two, that's where we turn around and we go, what happened isn't what I thought would happen. I need to figure out why. So this idea of the 1300 rule, it can come into play in a couple of different scenarios. Scenario one, you don't have any kind of ability to pick up this chemical whatsoever, right? That's where this is going to come into play. It doesn't have a PID. It's not cross-sensitive on anything. It doesn't have any kind of reading on an AP4C or whatever, any kind of meter you have. And it has some kind of a potential harm because you know the chemical already, right? Because in order to know the vapor pressure, you need to know what the chemical is. So if you know what the chemical is, you're looking up its harm. And it's turning around and saying, well, this is a skin absorbent or a skin toxic type of material at these levels, at these parts per million. Well, if you're turning around and you find out that you have a vapor pressure and you want to estimate what that concentration could be at its max, this is a great rule of thumb in order to provide the right level of PPE. And then our other one would be, hey, listen, I have this vapor pressure, this chemical. You should see this kind of concentration. I walk in there with my meters and I don't get that concentration. Well, that signals me that my reality and my theoretical are not matching.
I like that. I'm gonna explain it for our good friend to a lower level.
Okay, go.
Let's say you have a puddle of water outside on a hot day, right? So what happens to that water? It disappears because it's turning into vapor, which is like a little bit like, when the stuff on the surface gains enough energy to break away, right? That's evaporation. That's kind of like where it goes to. So the 13 rule was a quick way for scientists to guess how much water vapor can be in the air when it's really hot outside, like in the summer. So it's like a shortcut to figure out how much water could disappear from a puddle without when the temperature changes. Now, the rule says that for every 10 degrees of temperature that goes up, the amount of water vapor that can be in the air almost doubles. And this isn't perfect, but when it's a handy way for us to guess without doing a lot of complicated math. So if it's a warm day and your puddle is disappearing quickly, it's because the warm air can hold more than the visible water and the temperature goes up and it can hold more, pretty much like that. That's how the 1300 rule.
There's a key point that you said there, and that's temperature, right? We talk about the theoretical and looking up the vapor pressure. Well, honest to God, because like Bob said, you change a degrees by 10 and you can either double or half the amount of vapor that's going on, depending on which way that temperature drop is. So we need to be aware that there are vapor pressure temperature graphs and curves out there. So if you're going to apply something like a 1300 rule, you need to know, right, when you want to have an idea of what the concentration should be, you should know what the vapor pressure at the temperature that you're really dealing with is, not just whatever that, NIOSH says at 68 degrees or, whatever your SDS is. You could be in the middle of the desert where it's 120 and your vapor pressure is going to be totally different than you'd possibly imagine.
Right. But like you said before, you have to know what it is for this whole idea to work. Right. And that's not always true. It's just not a thing. Right. You're really, seriously, if you think you're going to walk away from every hazmat scene knowing what went down, you're in for a long career. You're never going to do that. Yeah. And I hate saying never or always, but I'm telling you, you're going to be very disappointed in that idea a lot.
Yeah. So I think it's good to know as a conceptual bit of information, but I think the reality of it being used in a day-to-day operation, that I just don't see it. I just don't see it being something that you would reach into your toolbox all the time when you're doing research to find out.
I agree. So, second question.
Okay. So the second question, we have to dive back into a topic that we hate talking about, and that's lithium-ion batteries. I know.
Oh, go ahead.
The question stems from fire blankets, right? What are we seeing? Is there any more, right? Back a year ago, all this has been changing pretty rapidly, but about a year ago, the fire blankets really kind of hit the market. Have there been anything that we know about? Has anybody used them successfully? And are they something that somebody should have in their toolbox? So those are the three subset questions for the fire blanket. So I will address the should you have them in your toolbox. Yes, you should have them in your toolbox. You should have everything in your toolbox. This is a complicated system. Let's just work on EV cars for a moment that we don't really fully understand or fully know. And your situation could be something that has yet to be addressed, like a parking garage or a manway cover inside. Having all tools at your disposal is extremely important, but keep in mind, it is nowhere near the end all be all. This fixes everything all the time type of a thing.
No, I was just in California, and I was talking to some of the guys, and we were talking about batteries just on a break. And I said, anybody have a Tesla? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, is it true that there are Tesla dealerships that the entire car lot is underneath the Tesla place? And they're like, yeah, that's how it's done. And I'm like, holy crap, you have a bunch of Teslas underneath the building and parking
underground
garages. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. I'm like, it's very smart, but then I'm sitting there going, I don't know if that's really a good idea.
Not if it catches fire.
Well, the point is I'm saying that might be an application where the blanket might be a good one, because if you need to make some moves and maybe pull exposures, and I'm talking about exposure like the other Teslas, or protecting the exposure on the floor above, maybe the people or whatever it might be, the blanket's probably not a bad idea.
No. Well, let's talk about what we know it's going to do and what we know it's not going to do. All right. What is it going to do? It's going to put out the content fire of the vehicle, right? So it's going to, if you got, yes, we talk about the EV part of the EV vehicle, but we also have to remember that most of the other parts of the vehicle are extremely flammable. Plastics, oils, those things are going to go up like there's no tomorrow. And they do rely on oxygen in the atmosphere in order to burn. So by putting the blanket over there, one, we're suppressing that fire, which could prevent the thermal runaway from increasing. But
right, because that's going to produce more heat that will drive the tipping of batteries. So if we can eliminate that, now we're just dealing with a battery fire.
Right. And some things that we know is going to happen is it's going to reduce flame impingement on surrounding areas, because you're literally covering the car with the blanket. So when Bob talked about, it may not spread to another car, or above the car might be protected, yes, we know that that's possible. What are some of the things it's not going to do? It's not going to stop thermal runaway, and it's not going to stop propagation.
I don't disagree with that. That's still going to happen. Therefore, and I like your approach with it. It is, I'm not a Navy SEAL or something where I'm carrying everything on my back. I have a fire truck that carries lots of weight. So why wouldn't you have all the tools in your toolbox? Because the blanket takes care of problem A, combustibles, and now problem B is going to be done by whatever other method you pick out. And I'm not getting into that whole thing because there is something on the market that might be able to do that, or coming to market. Not yet.
But, which is actually question 3, so don't jump ahead to that one.
Oh, sorry. I didn't even know that.
No, and we don't even have much answer on it. It was just a question that came through. All right, so fire blanket. What, Bob, would you see as a potential pitfall of the fire blanket? Something that somebody's going to do and then be like, oh, crap, I didn't realize that until after I employed it.
Oh, a problem with it. I don't know. Maybe there's a person in the car or something like that. I don't know. that would be phenomenally horrific. I really don't know.
I was thinking, we talk about it protecting exposures, but there is one exposure it doesn't protect. It can't protect the ground. Yeah, it doesn't protect down. So I think that needs to be at least a thought process where it's like,
I got it.
What? Go.
I got it. You make we dispose of the fire blanket and we make the sleeping bag.
I was going to go with a burrito.
Very nice.
Yes. The battery burrito. Oh my God, it's so
burrito.
good.
And then we fold it like it's a burrito and we tuck it in. It's got the little knobby part in the back.
It's so. I'm gonna patent that. Somebody's gonna have to write that down. All right.
So
no, that's a good point. It doesn't stop all that energy, because that's really what it is. It's heat energy being applied to the floor. You know, and the heat is still freely passing through the blanket to go out. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the blanket's whole reason to operate is that it lets the smoke build up and choke the fire out.
Right. And
that's the premise.
Heat, and it prevents radiant heat. Right. We've got our three ways of conducting heat. Right. So yes, you're saying it's still letting the heat out. It's going to let that out through conduction. Right. And then the radiant heat that would say melt an exposure or cause fire to jump from one exposure to another with no flame in the middle. It's going to help protect against that. So yeah, have the fire. Absolutely have the fire blanket as a tool in the toolbox. But let's really make sure that we're understanding its limitations, same as we did with cell block. We'll get into that another day. And same as we are doing with, these devices that are supposed to cool under the vehicle, putting water as saline to discharge the batteries. As long as we understand the limitations and that nothing is an end-all, be-all, then I think we're operating safely.
Yeah, I think people are going to start wrapping their heads around this multi-pronged approach, because we were just talking about this earlier today, is like, at a certain point, everybody's going to kind of understand the game. And there's a lot of reps out there, and not representatives, but a lot of people doing these batteries incidences. And we have been sharing all this information. It's been coming from places of like, I've actually done this kind of thing. And there's going to be better tools that are going to come out. And honestly, they all have some merit. It's just, what's your budget?
One day, Bob, we will have a conversation about batteries, and it will be our last battery conversation ever.
Someday it will happen.
I don't know if today's that day. Real quick, we only got a few minutes, but the last question was about that product that you were referring to, the ColdCut. What is happening with it? We heard you guys talk about it. We haven't heard anything since. And the answer to that is, well, we don't have any additional information.
Right. They are coming. I know they're coming to do a live demo in San Diego. And that was maybe last week or so. I'm going to check it with my contacts out there, but we are going to be trying to get some video to bring it to your attention and
get them on the show.
Oh, definitely. I want to talk to them. I want them to show. I want them to see. I want everybody to eat with their eyes and see what we're talking about, because, we sat in the demo and I'm like, oh, and then like 10 minutes in, I'm like, huh,
this is pretty cool.
20 minutes, I'm like, oh, that's the thing.
Yeah.
By the time it was like a half hour in, I'm like, that might do it.
Right. It's either going to work phenomenally or they have a really good BS sales department. We're not sure yet, but we promise you that when we have more information, we will absolutely truthfully tell you what we think of everything.
Yes. So I guess that wraps it.
That pretty much wraps it up.
All right. Well, let's just thank our last bits of sponsors. Facing chemical spills, waste disposal, or environmental challenge, SMR Rapid Response offers expert solutions. You can reach them in Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina at 800-248-5816 or smrrapidresponse.net.
And truthfully, one of my favorite companies out there, IEC, Industrial Emergency Council, is a not-for-profit led by experts. They are a training company. They provide diverse emergency response training. They've got over 40 years of experience. They collaborate with fire departments, public agencies, militaries, and the private sector. So if you want to know about more what IEC can do for you, visit iectraining.org or give them a ring, 650-508-9008.
See you guys.